Green Dot Daily, Action Network's daily sports betting show. I'm your host, Tim Kalinowski. Join us every weekday at noon Eastern, however you found us now, of course. But we're also streaming in the Action app, on the Action YouTube channel, as well as Action HQ on Twitter. Green Dot Daily is presented by BetMGM. Use bonus code ACTION when signing up to get a risk-free bet up to $1,000. Terms and conditions apply. You're probably wondering, where is Brendan? It's me. I don't know how they let me in here, but look, they found someone more handsome, more charming, someone who cares far less about Celtics undrafted prospects. So that is why I'm here. But more importantly, it's everybody else we bring in. We got a great show for you today. Matt Moore, he's going to be talking NBA. We bring in Jim Root from the Three Man Weave. He's going to talk about college hoops. And then we're going to talk about weather. And Evan Abrams is going to tell us all the things that I would never be able to research. So should be an amazing show. Should be fun. Again, I don't know how they let me in here. I guess, people are on vacation, but we bring in our first guest, Matt Moore. This guy, I'll tell you, I was pumped when I saw the rundown because I like watching Matt Moore's clips from Green Dot Daily of him ranting and raving about the Brooklyn Nets and all things NBA. So I was like, okay, if Matt is going to be my first guest, that makes it easier on me. Matt, how you doing today?
Doing well, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm hanging in there. Loaded NBA slate tonight, but you got two picks for us. The Bucks are short underdogs at Cleveland. What do you got?
Yeah, let's go ahead and start with the Bucks plus 1.5 here. So here's the big key is that the Cleveland Cavaliers last year kind of seemed to even the odds versus the Milwaukee Bucks. Finally, a team challenged the Bucks in the division, and the Cavs have been off to an absolutely terrific start this year. They've arguably been a better team when you look kind of under the hood at the numbers versus the Bucks this season. If you compare the two resumes, the Cavaliers kind of come out ahead, but here's the big missing piece from last year's 2-0 performance from the Cavaliers early in the season, which was Brook Lopez did not play in any of those games. That's really significant here. When Brook Lopez is on the floor this season versus the Cavaliers have a net rating of plus 35. Lopez really counters the combo of Jared Allen and Evan Mobley, and you really see the difference that Brook Lopez is able to make. From there, we've got one of my favorite trends, honestly, in the NBA, and that's Mike Budenholzer with the Bucks does not lose division games. Does not happen. He's won over 86% of all division games since taking over as Bucks coach, and they're 22-14-2 against the spread versus division opponents. This should be a great game, but if I'm catching points with Giannis and how the Bucks have gotten up for all of the marquee games this season, if you look back, like most of the games where the Bucks have had a big game on the schedule, like that game versus the Pelicans, they show up and they really assert their dominance and show why they are a true title contender. The Cavaliers offense has cooled off a little bit. All of these reasons leave me. I'm going to go ahead and take the Bucks plus 1.5 versus the Cavs.
Giannis, a trend like that, short dogs. I'm in. We go over now to the New York Knicks, who squashed the Golden State Warriors last night. They're on a back-to-back, and they are short favorites against Toronto. What do you got?
8 in a row for the Knicks, both straight up and against the spread. Longest stretch in the NBA. Absolutely terrific times if you're a Knicks fan. I guess Bing Bong is back. I can't believe it. Return of the Bing Bong. But I'm going to go ahead and take the Knicks here as a short favorite tonight. I make this game Knicks minus 5.5 based off of power rating. Don't really know how this has gotten to be this short. Here's a big key for it. The Knicks are on a back-to-back. There's no one really key, even if they were to set Brunson, not going to be worth enough to the spread for this not to be worth value on the Knicks. And this is one of another trend that I've gotten to really love. Since the bubble, the Knicks on the second night of a back-to-back under Tom Thibodeau, 21-9-1 against the spread. That vibes with the idea that Tibbs teams always go hard, especially in these kind of rough spots. So I'll go ahead and lay the points. I'm going to keep riding the Knicks here, and because I like the number and the trend, but the fact that they've won 8 in a row doesn't hurt at all. We'll go ahead and we'll take the Knicks here as a short favorite.
I was nervous about the back-to-back, but when you tell me a trend like that, Bucks plus 1.5, Knicks minus 1. All I ask for Christmas is that Bing Bong is not back. Matt, it was a pleasure. Thanks for coming on. All right, from the pros to college, we bring in Jim Root from the Three Man Weave. We got two bets from him on deck here. We're looking at TCU at Utah. It's basically a Utah neutral site game, but not really, because this thing is in Salt Lake City currently. TCU plus 1.5 versus Utah. Jim, how you doing? What do you got on this game?
Oh, I'm great. I'm ready to rock here. We're almost to a kind of a break in college basketball. So this is kind of like the last hurrah. I'm ready for it. I'm looking forward to the holiday break, but there's still money to be made before we go on that break. And you're right. I love TCU here. There's some concern about them going to altitude, and it's going to be a pro Utah crowd, but I really like the way TCU is trending right now. Since they got Damian Baugh back from a weird NCAA suspension, he has been great, and the team's been fantastic. They're 3-1 against the spread to go with now 4-1 over their last 5. He's been a difference maker, kind of moves Mike Miles off the ball, lets him score a little bit more. And Utah is really due for some regression. This is a team I was very high on coming into the year, and they've been fantastic so far. But you just look at some of the shot quality stats. Both their own three-point shooting and opponents' three-point shooting is due to negatively regress for the Utes. I think it happens to them here today against the TCU team that I was very in on, a preseason Final Four pick for me. So we'll see if that bears out. But in a micro sense, I like them a lot today. Plus 1.5, I think they get the win.
A lot going on for the Horned Frogs. Wow, I got to know their AD. When I first saw this, I thought it was a college football matchup. It would have been a good one if they did play. I told you, look, I have a hard time with my hoops this time of year. I really got to wait till post-Christmas, post-New Year's. And I saw this next pick. This is Iowa is playing Eastern Illinois. They're laying 32. I saw that and I wanted to hold my nose. Are we really betting that?
Oh, we're betting it. We're getting fired up about it too. And this, I am not a huge buyer of trends all the time unless you have a real reason for what's going on behind the trend. But this is one I totally buy. Fran McCaffrey as a double-digit favorite in November and December is 46-14 against the spread in his career. That's over 75%. He's 15-0 in those situations the last 4 years. Like, his teams just blow out bad competition over and over again. That's how they amp up their analytical rankings. And you could say, oh, I don't know if it's going to work out the same way without Chris Murray. I'm not worried about that. They already blew out Southeast Missouri State without him, covered that spread by, I think, 7 points relatively comfortably. They just have a very potent offense that gets up and down the floor, is not intimidated by lesser competition, and Eastern Illinois is really bad. That's why it's a 32-point spread. I trust Iowa to cover that spread. I trust Fran McCaffrey in these situations. I'll take that minus 32, and I think first half would be worth a look too if people want to get a little extra money on this one.
Yeah, I would be probably looking at the first half myself. I don't know if I can be biting my fingernails watching a team that's laying 32 to the last minute of the game. There might be other things that are more important to me. But look, I love the slate. I love the picks. Should be good. Getting on a roll here with college hoop. It's that time of year. The college the college football is slowing down. College hoops ramping up. Jim, 3-man weave Wednesday mornings, right?
Yes, sir. 3-man weave podcast on Big Bets on Campus every Wednesday morning.
There you go. Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Look, I was a little nervous hosting for my first time. I'm thinking, what do I need to know? What do I need to research last minute? I'm like, do I got to know the third string point guard for Eastern Illinois? And, the wonderful production team, they say, no, you just got to really talk about weather. And that is why NFL Week 16, if you've taken the time to notice, the weather is bad. These totals are dropping like flies. Notable all across the boards. The temperatures are almost as low as the actual totals in these games. That's why we bring on meteorologist Kevin Roth to tell. I was hoping, Kevin, that you would actually be at one of these places raining sideways. That'd be a lot better shot. But it looks like you're nice and toasty. Tell us how bad this weather actually is.
Want me doing the Jim Cantori, just out there, just getting buried in snow. And yeah, no, I'm good staying inside here. Like, there's a lot of games. I've got 8 games that are going to be impacted by the weather, but not all these games are going to be impacted the same way, right? Some of them are just cold, but with light winds. Some of them feels like temperatures of 10 below zero. Some of them have wind gusts over 40 miles per hour. So each game has kind of its own impacts, and I put them into various buckets so we can kind of figure out short term which games are going to matter the most.
Yeah, so tell us about that, because I feel like Goldilocks and the Three Bears here. I get to play Goldilocks with the blonde hair. There's 3 categories here. I like to start with the downright ugly. Which one is that here?
Oh, you want to start with the ugliest?
But yeah, I'm sorry. That's what I like, right?
I thought we were going to build a crescendo into the worst, but we can start with the worst of it. That works for me too. There's no question about it. The ugliest game is going to be the game in Cleveland. It's New Orleans at Cleveland. First off, it's cold. There could be some blowing snow. But what really matters is that we're going to see 20 to 30 mile per hour sustained winds. We're going to see wind gusts over 40 miles per hour. That is the kind of weather that you see maybe once a year. This is shut down the passing game kind of weather. This is run it 3 times and punt it and hope that your punt actually goes forward instead of getting blown sideways by the wind kind of weather. I don't see a viable way for these teams to efficiently move the ball because you can't throw it deep, and the defense knows that, so they're jamming in the box. It's just downright ugly when you get winds that high, and that's what I expect.
Heck of a first-time host on me giving you a curveball and making you start with the ugly there, but that's what you get. If it couldn't be windy and raining sideways for you, that's what you get instead. I'll put it on you. Tell us what the next bucket is.
All right, nothing wrong with an audible when you're talking NFL. That works for me. We'll work our way from worst to gradually improving. And the next bucket I've got are games that we will definitely see impacts, whether it's watching it or talking about the eventual score. There will be impacts from weather. That includes the Thursday night football game, Jacksonville at New York Jets. It's cold, it's wet. And I'm talking temperatures in the 40s and what looks to be at this point, steady rain throughout that game. Heavy enough so that it's going to impact passing, right? When that ball gets slick, quarterbacks don't throw it quite as well. Wide receivers are more likely to drop it. Balls that they normally don't drop, you start to see guys drop. And then we'll see an increase in turnovers as well when it starts to rain, especially when it rains fairly heavy. And that's what I expect for that Jacksonville at Jets game. Now, the winds aren't as powerful, so you still can throw the ball deep, which is why it's in a slightly different bucket than what we'll see in Cleveland. About a 15 mile per hour wind there, which is manageable, but it's ugly. Similar story in Chicago, Buffalo at Chicago. This is not nice weather. It's 10 degrees with a 20 mile per hour sustained wind. The feels like temperature is going to be 10 below zero. And not only is it cold, but that 20 mile per hour sustained wind with gusts of up to 30, that makes it pretty tough for longer throws. It makes it hard on long field goals. And just in general, that's going to drive the scoring down as well.
You talk about wind in Chicago, and the first thing that comes to mind is that the over or under in the Cubs game? Is the wind blowing out or is it blowing in? But it's football instead. Finish us off here with what we got last.
Yeah, we know that wind is certainly an issue there in Chicago. It's the Windy City, right? And I could talk all day about the Cubs and why the wind matters there more, but we'll save that for MLB. The last bucket I've got here are games that are cold, but I think good enough so that, yes, we'll see some impacts, but also good enough so that I'm not too gung-ho about betting unders in these games or looking at various prop bets and trying to find the under. Generally, cold weather does have some correlation to scoring, but it's not a strong correlation the way that high winds are. You see a very strong correlation with high winds, just a very slight one with cold weather. These upcoming 5 games all fall in that category of cold, but not windy enough for me to really downgrade it significantly. It's Houston at Tennessee. It's Seattle at Kansas City, Cincy at New England, Atlanta at Baltimore, and Raiders at Pittsburgh. All of those 5 games, it's not good weather, but I think it's good enough that you shouldn't seriously downgrade it.
I have a friend of mine who said, he hates the whole weather thing. He's like, every NFL team should just have a dome. He wants to see dome balls slinging around all the time. A guy like you would never go for that, would you?
No, I hate domes. Every time they build a new ballpark or a new stadium and it's got the retractable roof, I'm like, that's one more down. No.
Exactly.
I need bad weather. I love it.
I agree with you. In that way, I say, look, I get to fill 8 minutes of a show talking about weather. If they all played in domes, then there's no Kevin on the show.
What would we do? I don't know. One thing I'll add here before I get out of here, these forecasts will change, especially as we get closer to Saturday here before kickoff. So make sure you're checking out the forecast on rotogrinders.com. That's where I post it. Make sure you're following me on Twitter at KevinRothWX, and I'll keep you up to date as these forecasts kind of adjust a little bit. We've got a good idea of what's going to happen, but we will know for certain as we get closer to kickoff.
Appreciate it, Kevin. Thank you very much.
Hey, thanks for having me. Good times.
Okay, that is the actual weather itself. What does that actually mean? For normal people, that means this weekend, holiday travel. You might have to slow it down, leave early. I don't care about any of that. I care how it affects the actual football. And that's why we bring on, like I said, that guy that knows a heck of a lot more about all this stuff than I do. It would take me forever to research it. That's why I talk. I don't read. Evan Abrams, great to have you here, Evan. Like I said, we showed those temperatures, how low they are. The totals, just as bad, just as low. We got some historic ones, Evan. Evan, what's going on?
Yeah, first of all, your inaugural show. So glad to be here. Happy, enjoy, great stuff. Going from Kevin to Evan, I'm going to try to talk about pretty much the same things. So let's start with the Jets game, though, since it's tomorrow night, right? That total, now this is just crazy. I'm in New York myself. I was just outside. It's freezing cold, but I don't think the weather's gotten here yet. But the total was like 42 on the look ahead. It is now 36. So 36 at the moment. This would be the lowest total in a Giants or Jets home game since 2011. I'm wearing the scarf. It's like this all over the place, Tim, like all over the country. As Kevin talked about, these temperatures are really, really low and they're really impacting totals. So it's going to be a fun one this week.
Well, you tell me that the historic trend with New York there. I'm like, well, that's just bad quarterback play. I guess that's not totally the case because the weather here is historic. 9 games with freezing temperatures. I'm just cold thinking about it. I don't know what else to do other than to just shiver and say, how does this affect my betting?
Yeah, so let's just go through a few facts and then we'll talk about some of the actual gambling and how we make some money off of this. So right now, there doesn't even look like there's going to be a total of 50 or more next week either. Right now, that would be 3 consecutive weeks without a total of 50. So this is pretty much unprecedented. And then when you talk about the fact that right now we have 7 totals below 40. We haven't seen that since 2011. So I think that's really what we're talking about when we're talking about which games. And then let's go into the why, right? So the freezing temperatures, but it's also the scoring across the league, Tim. 22.1 points per game for teams, 2.46 touchdowns per game. It's the lowest since 2017, the second lowest since 2010. So I think it's the scoring. I think it's the temperatures. I think it's everything kind of coming together. So right now, I think our main focus, though, should probably be on this Saints-Browns game. 31.
Disgusting.
Yeah,
Disgusting.
31 and a half. 31 and a half was its lowest total. So that's, I think, where we're trying to figure this out. And now when you look at the Action Network data, 94% of the money, I'm looking right now, 95% of the money is on the under on that game. So it was about 38 on the look ahead, 39, now about 32. In my experience, I like the over 32. I would bet the over in these games. I think Andy Dalton, Deshaun Watson, they find ways to get points. I think even defenses find ways to get points. To me, just too damn low, Tim. What do you think?
Evan, that's putrid. I would have bet that over. Look, I bet some of these unders earlier in the week, and I was telling you, I didn't put them into my action app because I got distracted in this, and I got my buddies, when they see it, they won't believe me. Like, you got that number at that, but there could be that buyback since I got it at those higher numbers. Can look for the middling opportunity there. You're a real sick one for going over in these ones, Evan.
I mean, the only other thing is when you look at all these games, right? Like Kevin talked about, there's like 10 games lighting up signals on Action Labs that show little, weather patterns. 10 games this week. It's more games with weather patterns without. But let's look at some of the teams that are actually going through this. Seattle, New Orleans, Vegas, Houston, Atlanta, the Chargers. I would look towards fading some of the hot weather teams going into these places that are, torrential. So that, to me, that's probably the actionable angle I'll look this week. Like the Falcons have their 7th game in sub temperatures in 20 years. So those are the types of things I'll probably look for.
I think the actionable angle for these warmer weather teams would be to maybe borrow the scarf that you have on there.
Yeah, sure. Like the Dolphins, right? Like what we saw in Buffalo. I mean, Tua played well, but looked a little cold.
Evan, it was great having you. You were one of the first people I met when I first came to Action Network. So like I said, when I saw you on the rundown here, I was like, that's a pretty full circle moment. So thank you, Evan. Appreciate it. If you give us a little flick of the scarf on the way out, why not? That's gorgeous.
Enjoy the first show, Tim.
Thank you, Evan. I appreciate it. Remember, you can follow us on the Action app. Never miss a pick from today. Never miss a pick ever. We had Matt Moore. He gave us NBA. Jim Root. He gave us college hoops. There's plenty more. So make sure you follow along. Speaking of full circle moments, like I said, we had Evan on today. I had my first day of the Action Network football season this year. I started off as an intern. Then I had my first day of school. It's, they might not ever ask me to host the show again. They might say, Tim, one and done. See you later. I'm hoping that's not the case. I'm hoping I'm not a one-hit wonder. I can do this a little more often. But hey, it's that time of year. It's freezing cold. My mom, all she talks about, the weather, the this. How are you going to travel? How are relatives going to get here? And I'm just thinking, not one time have you mentioned football. Not one time have you mentioned how that matters for the total. So if you are going to bet any of these things, remember BetMGM. Green Dot Daily is presented by BetMGM. Use bonus code ACTION when signing up and get a risk-free bet up to $1,000. Terms and conditions apply. We'll be here same time, same place tomorrow. Thank you, everybody. That's a wrap.